Hey everyone, it's Solo, and I just wanted to talk to you really quick about Nidalee. Nidalee is kind of a problem for NA. She's one of the worst performers of this weekend that we started LCS with. 0-4, winless, has looked really poor in all the games, and I think it's really easy. I was kind of joking about it that hey, this champion is just kind of NAJ. So the players aren't at the skill level it needs to be able to be successful. And I was kind of buying into that too, watching the games. So we saw a lot of early deaths, a lot of dumb mistakes, and kind of a lack of understanding about what makes Nidalee strong. And but being a player myself, I knew that there had to be more to this. I know that there's always room to blame the draft. And so that's what I did. I blamed the draft. And I went in and I did a lot of research and I figured out kind of what makes Nidalee successful in the eastern regions and what NA is doing poorly and why Nidalee is having such little success so far. So I'm going to dive into that with you and we'll talk about, the NA Nidalee problem and what they need to be successful moving forward if they continue to pick this champion. So let's start for reference. I left out LEC because they've only played one Nidalee game so far. So let's focus more specifically on LPL and LCK. Combined, LPL and LCK are 13-13 with Nidalee. LCK is 4-4. LPL is 9-9. It's a straight 50-50 champion, which is pretty good for something that's seen a lot of play rate. Usually champions range pretty largely between 40 and 60% when they become quote unquote meta. And I think that she's done fairly well in these regions. And if you've watched, they're successful to a degree. And a lot of what they do isn't necessarily based on like early invades or big leads through kills or big fights and skirmishes early that you'd kind of expect. Now, so what does the successful Nidalee look like? And I think one of the best performers this weekend on it was Inspired. Now, he didn't really accomplish just that much this game as far as for his team play. And a large part of this loss has to do with the top lane. But I will say, I do think he did what you need to do with Nidalee, which is get as much of a CS lead as possible. And if you look at other regions, that is what they try to do. Get invades when they can, ramp up their CS, especially after they finish Lich Bane. And they want to play for that kind of mid to late game spike where they're up 2 levels and they have a significant gold lead over the enemy jungler. And in large part, the lead they get over a lot of these kind of slower tank junglers is free. It's not like you have to outplay them. If you just path faster, if you just go in the right areas, you'll just get an innate advantage because your champion clears so quickly. So through my research, I found that I was trying to find more common victories and common defeats for, when it came to Nidalee, what champions were getting a lot of wins and what champions were not as successful. And the biggest outliers to me had to do with support. And even though both these supports are just generally very, very strong in the meta, I've noticed that Leona and Nautilus have a much higher win rate when it comes to being paired with Nidalee. They're both 9-5 combined, which is 14% win rate increase, which is, very significant. And stylistically, it makes sense. What does Nidalee need? She needs a tanky champion, especially like a tanky support to kind of make space for her, fight for vision, give you CC to land your stuff. And Nautilus and Leona both do that. And they also have something else that's very important. They have ranged engage. Now, they are engaged champions, but they're very non-committal. Nautilus hook into ulti, and then he can kind of bounce out of the fight. Leona has R, which is very ranged ability and very strong CC ability. So they can kind of get in and out without being fully committed, because like I said, Nidalee is a very big skirmish champion, and she wants to dance around these fights, and she wants to focus on, getting the heals off, getting the poke off, and not just being so all in with the engage. So like I said, FlyQuest probably one of the better teams when it comes to this. They paired the Nidalee with the Leona, which is very good. The set is obviously somewhat game losing in this draft, but looking back on this, and initially I thought this pick was very laughable because she didn't really do anything. But I do think this game is entirely kind of a top thing, and I do commend FlyQuest for actually giving Nidalee somewhat room of success with the Leona pairing. Now let's dive a little bit deeper. Let's talk about the C9 game. They had in a vacuum one of the best drafts on paper for Nidalee. They have Cassante, which is a great tank kind of AD top laner. They have Corki, AD mid. And they have the Leona we talked about. Remember, we're looking for Leona and Nautilus to be paired with our Nidalee for her engage and for her like beefy frontline. But if you watch this game, you know that Blabber had a lot of problems on the Nidalee. Very high death game, and he was picked off repeatedly. Now, why is that? Well, if we look on the other side, you'll see probably Nidalee's worst matchup in Taliyah, both in the mid, in the jungle, has been very successful. In LCK, Taliyah has accounted for all 4 of Nidalee's losses. And even though Gen G were able to overcome their Taliyah matchup while they're playing Nidalee and get 2 wins against her, if you take those away, she is 1-5 against Talia in some form in LPL and LCK, which is one of her worst matchups. And we saw this during the game. It's just very easy to pick this champion off. You know, she can't be able to move over the Talia E, and she's very one-shottable with the Vi ulti. Now, this is where we start to get into the kind of bad drafts regarding Nidalee. We get into energies, and they go and they pair her with the Braum. Now, Braum is already a champ that is barely played, hasn't even been played in LCK at the recording of this video, and has only played about a handful of times in LPL. So already not a very high pride champion, and specifically with Nidalee, it has only been played once, and it's lost that game, of course. So we have a champion that doesn't really have any experience with her, and you know, is very experimental. I think that if you watch this, you know, a large part is contracts failing to kind of get a lead and falling so far behind the Zyra and giving up a free kill to the AD carry. But just stylistically, it's hard for me to imagine that Nidalee could do anything this game when she has no real way to set up plays. Cassante is a very slow champion in the top lane. Braum is a very slow champion. He's not going to be able to give her that CC and give her kind of that ranged engage that we're talking about. He's more of a guardian and a protector, which Nidalee needs the champion that's kind of good to go in for her and set up some of her spears. All right, we get into the last game here. We have Shopify, and probably the worst draft when it comes to making sure Nidalee can be successful. Not only do they pair her with Rumble, kind of an AP top laner, which is, you know, really difficult because he doesn't really have setup for you, and he's very vulnerable. You kind of want to be playing for yourself. You don't want to be babysitting any lanes. We also have Rel, and you might think to yourself, hey, Rel kind of fits what we need because we need engaged support that's melee, that's, you know, very beefy. You know, why doesn't Rel work in the same way that Nautilus and Leona does? Well, Rel is hard engage, and to the highest degree. She is full commit when she goes in, and she's not coming out. And Nidalee as a champion really, really needs this kind of skirmish, this kind of back and forth to get value from the heals, get value from the poke. She doesn't want a flash fight that's instantly over or decided. She wants something that's going to last a while where she can get the most out of her kit. And that's what Nautilus and Leona kind of give to her, and to a certain degree Alistar, but we don't have enough information on that to kind of make that kind of a definitive pick. But yeah, Rel has been the worst performer. She's 1-5. Extremely bad champion with Nidalee, probably the worst support that you could pair with her outside of something that's kind of ridiculous and off meta. To kind of summarize this video, I mean, I started it out as kind of being a, you know, let's poke fun at the poor Nidalee play that's been happening in LCS. But as I learned more about what this champion needs to succeed, I kind of just thought, why don't we just point out kind of the flaws that are happening in the pick ban and the decision making that are leading up to us even getting in game. And I actually, from this, have hope that we can see more Nidalee, because I think this is a pretty powerful champ from watching LPL and LCK. I think that this champ can do a lot, but it just needs very like strict perimeters, and it needs a lot of help as far as like, you know, being successful. And I hope it gets played in LCS, and I hope it gets played to success following some of the guidelines I put in out this video. And to be honest, it didn't take me very long to kind of get this information, and it's readily available to anybody who wants it. So I'm a little bit disappointed in kind of the players and the staff to not come to these conclusions on their own, because, you know, you only have LCS once a week. They should come in with the best planes available and be able to kind of give themselves the best opportunity to succeed. Well, that's it for me. I mean, I feel like I've gotten my point across. If you guys have any opinions, maybe you think Nidalee is just awful regardless of the information here. Maybe you're excited like me to see people really try it out and keep being successful with the correct picks with it. So I'll see you guys next time. Thank you for watching, and go ahead and follow the channel.